Good afternoon, everyone. So to continue our discussion about e-commerce, so we're going to continue our discussion about the steps in implementing e-commerce or integrating e-commerce as part of your marketing strategy in your business model. So step 4, planning and design of e-commerce strategy. So companies should not underestimate the amount of business reorganization required to introduce e-commerce. Companies need to consider whether they can carry out the development work themselves or whether they should subcontract part of all of this work. Example, who is going to design the website? The company must consider whether it has appropriate development resources and experience to build an e-commerce systems. So some pitfalls to avoid during planning. Companies need to ensure they do not neglect planning for customer service both before and after a sale. Fail to integrate their e-commerce with their traditional business. Fail to prepare for success and the volume of business that it may generate. For example, avoiding network traffic jams, and underestimate the need to advertise the website and e-commerce facility. Next, step 5 for implementation. In order to have a successful e-commerce development, it is necessary to have board-level commitment and support from all departments, which are people who are involved and stakeholders in particular organization. Projects have been known to fail without such commitment. Some education and training will need to be implemented before any further development is attempted. Introduce training on the business and technical issues of creating an e-commerce system, and training is required for various disciplines of hardware, software, networks, marketing, finance, and human resources. And lastly, we have strategy assessment. The objectives of the strategic assessments are, number 1, to find out if the e-commerce system is delivering what it was supposed to deliver. Number 2, to learn from both the successes and failures of the systems reviewed. And number 3, to identify failing projects as soon as possible and determine the reasons for failure. So in this particular context, from step 4 to step 6, it highlights the very importance of why should we plan carefully or deliberately an e-commerce strategy before implementing it in our respective organizations. Say, for example, in the planning stage and designing, we should be cognizant that whether if we're going to plan a particular e-commerce strategy, it highly requires a huge amount of capability, IT capability, and competency in your respective organization in maintaining the operations of that particular business enterprise in the e-commerce. Say for example, kung ikaw isa ka ka-entrepreneur and you're trying to engage or enter the e-commerce platform, and you have decided na who will going to maintain and operate my e-platform, because you as an owner, you also have other things to consider in terms of your business. Say for example, sa imong finance, imong accounting operations. So it's not just about ikaw na pod mismo ang mag-deliver ang magbuhat ana sa imong online platform sa e-commerce, because you have other things to do. So therefore, you should going to consider contemplate whether you develop the e-commerce platform yourselves or whether you hire someone to do it or to subcontract it for you. In either case, say for example, toy manufacturer, pag once na nalang kay itap or nalang kay i-hire na someone to maintain and operate that particular e-commerce platform sa imuha, then therefore it would be more of basically much more convenient in your part because you are trying to delegating something sa imuhang respective na duties and obligations. Second is kung whether as a company should consider whether what particular resources and capabilities ang kinahanglan nimo to build up or to create that particular e-commerce system sa imuhang respective na organization. Next, implementation na part, dapat that the respective organization should be committed in the implementation of that e-commerce system or e-commerce platform. Remember that once you're trying to invest in that e-commerce platform, you need to give or allocate significant amount of money, dako na resources or kwarta ang kailangan nimo i-invest on your e-commerce platform, and therefore it should not fail because if that particular um, e-commerce platform or strategy na imong gi-implement in your organization will bound to fail, then therefore, as an entrepreneur, you're going to lose a huge amount of money. And therefore, the project in charge should be committed in delivering the respective objectives in terms of the implementation of e-commerce strategy. And aside from the commitment, dapat na-apoy technical capability ang someone who will going to implement the e-commerce strategy. So therefore, dapat na siya education, proper education, and training before the particular implementation of e-commerce will be pursued in the organization. Training such on technical issues and other aspects such as hardware, software, and networks, etc., etc. And lastly, strategy under assessment, whether you should trying to assess whether your particular e-commerce strategy in terms of implementation fits well with what was being planned on the formulation stage. If naagani certain discrepancies or wala nagkadima or wala nagkatugma, so therefore, we're going to implement certain control measures, and therefore, dili na mosulod to mga certain policies, strategic policies, and business policies na kailangan nimo i-implement or integrate sa imong respective organization so that the implementation of the e-commerce strategy would suit well or mubalik siya dito on what has been originally been planned or formulated in terms of the e-commerce strategy that should be implemented in your respective organization and business enterprise, so that the value that is expected to be acquired in implementing this particular strategy in terms of integrating it to your marketing objectives or marketing plan in your business model will be established. So that's it. We're done with our lesson for today. That's lesson 3, which is e-commerce and online platforms as a part of marketing strategy. Okay? So if you have particular question in this particular lesson, please do not hesitate to contact me immediately. So that's it, and thank you for listening, and good afternoon.